Okay, it says we are live. So thank you and welcome to my second LinkedIn Live. If you're watching it live with us or if you're watching the recording afterwards. I started this series just last week because I have a lot of conversations with other marketers that inspire me, conversations that I don't usually share because they're behind the scenes and about our businesses. But I just thought having early access to LinkedIn Live and the current situation where we're all working from home, that actually it would be a good opportunity to share some conversations that I have with the people I admire and speak to. So today's is with the amazing Bryony Thomas. Thank you for joining me today, Bryony.
Thank you for inviting me. How exciting to get this early access. Thank you, Luan.
And we were talking about how we first connected, and we think it was on Twitter many years ago. And I was thinking about it again this morning, that when we've had conversations, our career paths have kind of followed and crossed and been quite a lot of similarities. And I remember having lunch with you in Clifton many years ago and kind of that realization. And now I think we tend to at least have an annual meetup at the 42 under 42 awards dinner in Bristol to see what we're doing if we don't speak. But the main reason I invited Bryony on for this session, which will be about 20 minutes, hopefully we can obviously all talk a lot longer than that, is because Bryony has just published the second edition of her book, which we both probably conveniently have here, Watertight Marketing. It's well thumbed. I read the first edition many times, attended your conference a couple of years ago, and I read this one as soon as it arrived before you launched during the situation. And it's always with a notepad by my side, and it inspires me of kind of, oh, I could do this for my business, and oh, actually for this client, and oh, actually I've got this another idea now. And I think you describe it as one of those, you know, the ways to use the book is to give it an initial read and then to keep
the holiday read. I call it the holiday read. So just to read it through like a novel to get the big picture, and it's about getting the picture on the front of the jigsaw box. Because I think often when you read, a good book, you have so many ideas. If you get going on the first one, you might not get to the best one.
Yes, and it's one of those ones that you keep reading as well, because depending on where you're at with your business or with your clients, there's always a different situation, which I guess is actually the model of it. So I think I talked with Lee Hopwood last week, and we talked a lot about marketing and studying marketing. And I think, even though I know that you've taught marketing as well, one of the biggest challenges is that it can be quite theoretical, it can be quite academic, and quite hard sometimes for marketers, at whatever stage they're at in their learning, to adapt it to real world practice.
Yeah, and that's often because of the case studies people choose. There's lots of marketing books talk about Coca-Cola and Apple. And I think if we all had Apple and Coca-Cola sized budgets, our marketing would be fab too. Not all those businesses, are we? And I think there are fewer books that help you to really translate it into real world, particularly real world smaller businesses on modest budgets.
Yeah, but your book is based on a traditional marketing model, isn't it?
It is, yeah, 1956. I claim no ownership. Definitely got there first. It's his model of rational decision making, and I do agree that it's a model of decision making. Rationality, I'm not so sure about. It's a 6-step model that kind of which I've overlaid onto a typical funnel that goes from awareness, interest, into evaluation and trial, and then into adoption and loyalty, which I've translated into a bucket, funnels, and taps.
So. Yeah, and the great thing is that your book title is exactly kind of what it says on the tin as well, because I know that you've always got to kind of practice what you preach as a marketer as well. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the watertight methodology, or even if you are, it's always good to have a recap on this because there's so much that sits behind it. Bryony, talk to us about watertight and
gosh, what the 2-minute rundown.
Yeah.
I always say when people say, give me your elevator pitch, saying, I'm not planning to spend any time with you in an elevator. I thought we could have a nice long lunch.
Well, now we wouldn't want to be in an elevator, would we? Because they're not big enough. So that's fine.
Exactly. I much prefer to tell people about it over a nice long lunch. But it's essentially a process for kind of assessing the buyer's journey and looking at each stage and thinking, what is the job of my marketing at each stage in a buyer's decision-making journey? And I split it using that 6-step model. I then divide those 6 steps into 3. So I have I get people to ditch the marketing funnel model, because it's not a funnel, it's a colander. I find it so funny. It's shaped like a funnel. It doesn't act like a funnel in any way. People are leaving the process. That's what you call a colander. And so I get them to reimagine it as a bucket at the bottom, and then you move up to funnels and filters, because it's just as important to filter out people out of your sales process as to funnel them into your business, and then tap. So you've got those 3 areas. So at the bottom, that's about customer service, customer loyalty. Funnels and filters about sales conversations and sales conversions. And then awareness and interest is what most people think of as marketing, which is awareness generation, lead generation. But I think that comes last. And I think that marketing has a role to play in all of those areas.
And actually, even though it is this funnel shape that we do kind of know, but I agree, it's actually funnel shape, but everyone leaks. As you just said, most of us would think, and the marketing models encourage us to start at the top. But your whole methodology is to start at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. Turn it upside down. And I think one of the reasons why we're all encouraged to start with awareness is because of the role models we're served. So organizations like Facebook, like LinkedIn, that have developed a massive user base, awareness first, and then monetize later. The thing is, these are unicorn businesses. They're not. They are the exception. And I think if most businesses model themselves on something that is exceptional, then they're going to miss. And so most businesses need to know how they're going to monetize it from day one, not let's build an audience and think about how we're going to monetize it later, which is what Zuckerberg and crew did. And so I think sometimes we're served these role models, and people think that they need to follow suit, whereas actually you're much better to have that watertight bucket before you start spending money on taps. Because clearly if you have a hole in your bucket and you're running taps, and the thing about taps is that they don't belong to you, they belong to the media owner. And so you're madly running around sticking your bucket under any tap you can find, and you go, oh, there's one over there. So you're much better to have a watertight bucket before you start spending time, money and energy on that awareness generation. If you haven't got something in the middle that converts, again, a complete waste of time and energy.
And I think that's why when you read it, even as a marketer doing this, it's just one of those things that you just keep nodding and going, yeah, I know this and I should do this.
Someone did describe it to me once with a flat around the face with a bleeding obvious.
Yes.
So you don't know how hard it is. Right.
There was something else, because obviously I picked it up again before we did this. I love the phrase at the beginning of the book about ditching marketing FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah, because this is the thing, isn't it? So I've never, when I say to people, can you think of more ways to spend money on marketing? Nobody struggles.
No.
Nor think of millions of ways that we could spend money on marketing, and we're thinking the next one, the next shiny thing, the next thing is going to be the magic wand. And we see people doing stuff, don't we? We see other people's marketing by virtue of it being a visible activity, and you go, oh, I should do that, and you kind of constantly dancing to someone else's tune, rather than thinking, what does my business need? And also doing some of the boring stuff, quite frankly, getting the fundamentals right. That sexy new thing might be sexy and new, but if you've got a hole in your bucket, there ain't no point.
Yeah, and we are all distracted by shiny new things, but almost that, and again, Lee and I talked about it last week, about having that confidence to say no, or decide that the latest trend, perhaps podcasts, just isn't for you, isn't going to monetize your business. It'd be wonderful to do it, but it might not actually be the right thing for you at that time. So
absolutely.
I love that reminder again.
Yeah, the other benefit, I think, to not always jumping for the shiny thing, is that you can see how people are using it, get a sense of what's working and what's not. First movers have to feel the edges on things, and that's trial and error. Whereas I think particularly for smaller businesses with more modest budgets, actually being a second mover, when you can pick up on what has already worked for people, can be a far more effective strategy.
Yeah. And again, so your model has 13 leaks in it, and I know the diagnostic that you have also helps you map those leaks and prioritize them in a traffic light system. And something else that we had a chat about was, is there a leak that is perhaps particularly important at the moment as we are in this world situation, as marketers are reviewing their plans? Is there something that might stand out as something that you would direct people straight to?
Yeah, I would. And so broadly speaking, I always say turn things upside down. So start at the bottom and work up. So broadly speaking, I'd say making sure you're taking really good care of your existing and more recent customers. So anyone who's bought from you in the last year or so in a recency, they're your first port of call, rather than kind of shouting into the world where everybody else is also shouting. So really putting your arms around them in a way that's appropriate. But I think the one that's probably what I would, if I had time, energy, or money, or any of those three things, ideally all three would be great, then I think what I'd be focusing energy on at the moment is leak number 4, which is no gateway, and putting in place a powerful conversion tool. Because I think we're all in a position where we can get conversations going at the moment. You know, we can drop people a line, we can pick up the phone, heaven forbid, and have a conversation with people, but it's having something of value for them that would actually convert into a sale for you. And so in No Gateway, there's a model in there called it's natural value exchange. It's time, data, money. So building a product ladder that gives value for time, then value for data, then value for money. So you do something that actually gets people to want to spend their time with you, to want to spend their data with you, and to want to spend the money with you. And I would do that so my favorite of those is a diagnostic, you know, a calculator, an assessment, a health assessment, particularly when it's bespoke to that individual. It doesn't have to be really complicated. I call this, you know, the simplest version is a Cosmo quiz. Are you mostly A's? You can do that with a PDF that they download and they circle A, B, C, D. Oh, look, you're mostly A's. We think that product X would be perfect for you. Oh, look, you're mostly D's. I don't think we're going to work very well together. Whatever it might be. So you can do a very simple quiz style download for this sort of diagnostic. Or you can spend some money on it, and there are some great tools out there. There's a tool called Score App from So Technology, and there's another one called Quiz Magnets from SMA Digital, and they vary in price. And it would allow you to do an online diagnostic that then delivers somebody a bespoke report, and that's the perfect opportunity to then have a valuable conversation. So I'd be thinking, what diagnostic would lead people into a conversation with you, so it's valuable to them, has a conversation with you, and you have a next step that is a monetized product of some kind.
And it's a low risk for both parties then as well, isn't it?
And it's the great thing about it, so it sits at trial in the Kotler model, so evaluation and trial. They're trying you out a bit. So, you know, this should be your crown jewels, this should be your best stuff. And really, the great thing about a diagnostic is it shows them what's wrong. It doesn't necessarily show them all the answers. It gives them some things they can get going with, but clearly points in the direction of what great solutions you might have next if they agree with you that that's the problem for them.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, definitely one that again you pick up and you go, which one will work? Which one do I need to focus some time on?
But don't go complicated first. Do simple first. So a little PDF download with a Cosmo quiz style. Start there. You can make it more sophisticated thereafter.
Yeah, quick wins we're looking for sometimes. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. So this was the second version of the book. Why did you revise it? What's different?
Yeah, it's quite a lot different. So it's there are 20,000 more words, and quite a lot of the other words have changed. So there are a few reasons. So the first is, I've now presented the watertight marketing methodology in front of more than 20,000 people over the last 7 years, and so I now know what lands as a speaker, when you're in the room, when the light bulbs go on, and when you've actually made them a bit more confused than they already were.
And it's not always what you expected to hit as well. Yeah, sometimes a small paragraph has really taken off, and you're like, oh, that was a filler.
Exactly. And so I now know which of the ways I describe things most people kind of respond to. And as you say, that re-emphasis. So there are things that I've said as an aside in the first book.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. And then there are other things that were really interesting. Go, yeah, you know what, Bri, everyone knows that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I've kind of changed the emphasis in some areas. There are 2 new models. So the time, data, money is a new model. The profit purpose matrix in chapter 11, which was a sentence in the first book, is now a model, and it'll probably become its own book. And I love that model. It helps people to really see which clients are going to both kind of feed their soul and their bank balance. It is great.
I think when you're writing a bit, you're kind of testing this stuff, because I know that you used that at the conference, didn't you? And I can imagine you were standing there going, are they getting it? Are they using it? Do they like this one?
And it's really landed. And then the other things changed. It's a lot tidier. I've done a lot of tidying up. So the nomenclature, it's a good word to say, isn't it? The kind of numbering and everything is much tidier. So the 13 touch point weeks now all very neatly have 3 themes, and under each theme there's an action and an example. So it's all very logical to follow, and nice kind of the organisation of it is really easy to picture and navigate your way through. And all new examples, because obviously I've had years of new clients, so I've got all new examples, which is great.
Yeah, sometimes talk about the organisation. The words is almost the easy part, isn't it? It's all the other thinking around how people are going to use it, how they're going to pick it up off the shelf, and the fact that you've now got like these nice tabs and colour coded and the detail. Yeah,
I'm so glad you picked up on that, because we worked really hard on the production, and also I've colour coded the different parts in the book, because I asked people how are they using it, and I've seen people's books, and they're all sticky tabs up, bookmarked and written all over. So I've got nice wide margins, so people can write on it. Please write on the book. Deface my book.
I can't do that.
Mark a page. Well, a couple of people have got 2 copies, one that they write on and one that they keep nice.
Oh, that's a good. Yeah, I could probably do that one. But when I first heard that someone had written in my book and folded corners down, it kind of made me feel a bit.
I love that. I love that more than seeing a copy of Waterspec Marketing covered in sticky notes and written up with notes on it, because then it's a living thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just I can't write in books, so I was just a bit like, oh, I don't know about that. Bryony, I could chat to you for ages, but it's nearly 20 minutes already, and we were going to try and keep to that. So I do want to say a huge thank you to you, and I know you're going to share your story in a minute, because we picked this date because this is one of your good days. You know what your good days are right now, because you are halfway through a schedule of chemotherapy.
I am, yes, and it feels good to have reached halfway. It feels like a real milestone. I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in December of last year, and pancreatic cancer is a toughie. The 5-year survival rate is 7%. So it's one to be fighting for sure. And 20% of the royalties from the Waterspec Marketing book are going to Pancreatic Cancer UK. So everyone who buys a copy, some of your money will go to supporting the really important work they're doing around research, awareness, and supporting people who are kind of living with the disease.
Yeah, and I know that you're sharing your journey on your Facebook and how it's going, and just the small things about what you're grateful for every day. So so thank you for keeping us updated as well. And you did a live this morning, and I was like, oh, she's really up to her game on getting dressed and ready for this webinar. I now need to go and get out of my pajamas to do it as well. So
it's lovely an excuse to get out of your pajamas, isn't it?
Sometimes. So yeah, I'm sure myself and everyone else wishes you well on that journey. Thank you for doing this on your timed good day in that schedule. I will be back next week for another LinkedIn Live with Professor Jonathan Deacon from the University of South Wales. Next week, we're going to be talking about coffee and marketing, because he's got lots of analogies with one of my other favourite topics as well. We can't see the comments if you're making any comments as this is live, so I'm sure as soon as we press stop, we'll both be diving on to our LinkedIn profile. So do connect with both of us, share this post, and come back again next week. But thanks for watching, and thank you, Bryony.
Thanks, Luan. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.